Our next speaker is Darren Hardy. He's the visionary success behind Success Magazine, the publisher and founding editor. As a business leader in the success industry for 2 decades, Darren's had a unique and unprecedented access to interview, study, and work with such notables as Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Donald Trump, Howard Schultz, Charles Schwab, Jeff Bezos, and many others. He's uncovered their secrets to their success, and today he's here to share with us some of those secrets.
Thank you. Thank you for that smattering of applause. Appreciate that. First thing I want to do is to compliment Transamerica for making this investment in your success. First off, let me make sure I'm in the right room. How many people here truly, sincerely want to have more success than you have right now? Okay, good. So, are you familiar with this book here? Anybody ever read or familiar with Think and Grow Rich? Then you know that it was written by this dude here, which is actually what he looked like when he met this dude here, Andrew Carnegie. And at the time that they met, Andrew had accomplished all his dreams and ambitions and was looking to leave a legacy. At the time, he was actually the wealthiest guy in the world by far. His net worth is estimated in today's dollars to be worth about $400 billion. So this whole Buffett at $50 billion, just a paltry 50 by comparison to his 400. And Napoleon weaseled his way into his conference room and just started grilling Andrew with every question he could possibly think of about how he created his success and how he motivated himself and how he motivated his employees and what he did first thing in the morning. And Andrew, after 2 hours, took a liking to this young man and said, you know, if you'll take this ravenous appetite to figure out the keys to success, I'll open up my little black book and get you an appointment with people in this world that nobody else can get an appointment with, but they're friends of mine, and they'll take their appointment if you come with my calling card. And if you'll then take all the ideas that you collect, put it into a book, and make it available to the world, I'll fund the whole expedition. Well, as you know, Napoleon Hill took Andrew Carnegie up on that, and as a result of it, Andrew opened up the door for Napoleon to sit knee to knee with the likes of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell and both Roosevelts, Wrigley, Firestone, Rockefeller. I mean, imagine sitting knee to knee with Rockefeller in his steely blue eyes and asking him the questions of what created his extraordinary success. And then he packaged it up into the book that became Think and Grow Rich. Later in his life, Napoleon Hill became the editor of Success Magazine. Today, I sit in the very chair that was once occupied by Napoleon Hill. And the lineage of success, in fact, kind of goes back all the way to 1891 when it was started by Orson Swett Marden. And then you might be familiar with W. Clement Stone, another legendary figure in the personal development business. Once was publisher. He had Og Mandino as an editor in Napoleon Hill. And then in 2007, we acquired Success Magazine. We put it back on newsstand in 2008. Y'all remember what 2008 was like, right? How about putting out a new print publication in March of 2008? That's what we did. And it was after Success had been the mockery of the publishing world because it had failed 3 times in a row. And so we had the largest first issue magazine release in the history of publishing. We sold 1 million copies of our first issue, which was bigger than Oprah, Martha Stewart. Condé Nast launched a publication at the same time called Portfolio. It was dead in 2 years. And so what's happened is exactly 100 years later from the time that Napoleon met Andrew Carnegie is the time that I became publisher of Success Magazine. And really, the same calling card that Andrew gave Napoleon, Success Magazine has been for me. And so I've had a chance to get in front of and meet with and study and interview the greatest business industrialists of our time. And so today, Transamerica didn't just hire me to come and talk to you about success and talk about productivity secrets of superachievers. Really on this stage with me here today is the best ideas from Richard Branson and Steve Jobs and Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and the like. And so in the short time we have together, I'm going to distill 8 years of the most intensive success study, getting a chance to get in the minds and hearts and backstages of the most successful people that have lived during our time and digest it for you in short order. What we're going to talk about are what are the productivity secrets of superachievers. How do these people who end up on the cover of Success Magazine end up doing 50, 100, and sometimes 1,000 times more than any of us in this very room when we all live in the same 24/7, 365 world. What are they doing that the rest of us aren't doing to create their extraordinary results because they're sheer mortal flesh, bones, and blood like the rest of us in the same exact period of time? So that's what I want to try to distill for you in our little bit of time together here. So how many people right now already say, man, I already work hard? How many people would claim that you work hard? You don't work hard right there? No? Not working hard? Well, any of you guys got bosses here? Put that hand up, man. See, I bet that the reason why you're not producing more is not because you're not working hard enough or you're not working long enough. None of those are really the reasons why you're not producing more in the marketplace. It has nothing to do with how hard or how long that you're working. You see, I was raised by a single university football coach father. And the only way you got any love and attention in my household was to work hard and to put in late nights and study through weekends and dribble with your left hand with your right hand tied behind your back if you couldn't dribble with your left. I mean, working hard was never going to be my handicap in life. And so by the time I was 18 years old, I was earning a six-figure income. And when I was 20 years of age, I got into the real estate business. And by 24, I was earning $1 million a year. And 27, I had a $50 million business. And it was all because I just had this work ethic of working brutally hard. But I reached the plateau where, number one, I was killing myself. I had no life. And I could not create any more success than this plateau, the ceiling of sorts, through the just brute force method of trying to succeed. When I met these three guys is when I finally discovered what it was that I was doing wrong. Because if the key to success was working hard, working long, exhaustive hours, there's no question I'd be wealthier than Richard Branson, Donald Trump, and Tony Hawk. But in reality, in a world of 24/7, 365, these three guys were kicking my ass. And not only were they wealthier than I was, they actually, I know that I was not frolicking on the beach as much as Richard Branson was doing on his own private island. I know I wasn't playing as much golf as Donald Trump does in his own private golf resorts. And I'm certain that I didn't have as much time to spend with my hobbies or my friends or my family as Tony Hawk was with his. And yet they were wealthier, they had more free time, they were a lot less stressed, and they were having a greater impact in the world. And so it really became this passionate obsession of mine to try to figure out what was it that they were doing that I wasn't doing that was getting their results versus my results. And so what I want to try to do is to outline for you the difference between being an overachiever, which I would imagine many of you in this room are, just like I was, working long, exhaustive hours. Nobody is going to accuse you of not working hard enough. But yet your results are still limited, as mine were. To transition into what I call a superachiever, those people that you do see end up on the cover of Success Magazine. You see, there are, I call, 4 categories of people in the world. And if you look at this axis, at the top are results, and on the horizontal axis is time and effort put. The first type of person is what I call the unengaged. Okay, these are the people that the only thing that they're trying to learn is how to install a rear end in their recliner on the weekends, right? They're not here. They might have been invited to this, but they didn't decide to show up. We don't have to worry about the unengaged. They're not here to listen. The next type of person is what I call the overmotivated underachiever. These are the people who read all the personal development books, right? They go to all the seminars, they sign up for it all, they read all the blogs, they go to all the webinars, and they apply none of it. And yet, they get no results as a result of it, right? But they're reading it all, and they're motivated. They're dream boarding, and they're meditating, and they're doing all the stuff, but they're not applying any of it, and that's why they don't get any results. Spending a lot of time, energy, and effort on those endeavors, by the way, but still getting very little result. The next is where I lived most of my life. The overmotivated, overwhelmed overachiever. Spending just brute force amount of time and energy, yes, getting more results than the average bear, but nowhere near the kind of results that I could have. What I want to do is try to help you become what I call the stunningly successful superachiever, where you see, spending very little time, energy, and effort, you can end up getting extraordinary results. So no matter where it is that you might find yourself on this matrix here, what I want to do is to try to help you get over into the far left corner and help you become what I call super achiever. So what is it that stops the super achiever? What is, in essence, your kryptonite? There's one destructive force out there in the world that is causing all of us with great capabilities, great potential. Because here's what I promise you. Those of you that are sitting here, your current results are nowhere near what you're truly capable of. If your creator were to look down on you and take a look at where you currently are in life, while they would see you as a loving, wonderful, creation of God, they would simply say, of all that I bestowed, the gifts, the capabilities, the potential that I placed in you, and this is all you've done with it, they would be disappointed. So we can achieve a lot more than we're achieving. What's stopping us? What's our kryptonite? Well, I want to try to outline for you, particularly in this day and age, what is the number one threat to your productive future, your ability to achieve your goals, realize your dreams, and fulfill your purpose. What do you think the number one threat, the number one stopping point for all of us with great capabilities and great potential? Imagine this. Imagine somebody came into your office and they went to the reception desk where you keep a little petty cash drawer, and they just started taking out $100 bills and lighting them on fire. And just doing that right in front of you. Just one right after the other. Just $100 bills, one right after the other, lighting them on fire. How long would it take for you to either call the cops or tackle them and throw them out the front door? But see, this is what's happening. All day, every day, inside your office, this is exactly what's happening, where people are just burning money. Well, what is it that is, who is it and what is it that's happening that is robbing you and robbing the people inside your office? When it comes right down to it, it is distractions. Distractions is your kryptonite to your super productive capabilities. In fact, it is to everybody in our current society. And studies shows that organizations lose $10,000 per employee just due to distractions a year. So that means that if you have 100 people in your organization, you're losing $1 million a year. Net. We're not talking about top-line revenue. We're talking about net productivity. $1 million a year if you have just 100 employees. As a nation, we're losing at least $650 billion a year. And that's a couple of years old because the distraction rate is proliferating at an epic volume. So the number one threat to your productive future, your ability to achieve your goals, is being able to control distractions. I say that the number one skill, and I get asked this all the time because I'm in the business of curating and publishing ideas on success. The number one skill you need in the 21st century, the most imperative skill of all, is learning to control your attention, learning to control your focus in today's epically distracting world. Because this is the epic battle of our times. We're constantly being swirled within a digital world. We used to have to, it was either a ring of a phone or a knock at the door for you to get distracted. But now we've got all these devices. All these are like open windows that we have brought into our environment, whether it be a laptop, a computer, a tablet, a mobile phone, where you are just at any time can be immediately distracted. And we are being distracted every minute on the minute as a result of these open doors and open vessels into our lives. And so this has become the great conundrum of our ability to stay on track, stay in focused, stay into what I call REM productivity. If this was the skill line in the 20th century of achiever, if you grew your skills of time management, leadership, success, at this rate, you'd end up at the top of your organization. You'd be number one in the marketplace if you put this sort of dedication into growing your skills. But here's the problem. Because of technology, the proliferation of technology, you see, technology has advanced far faster than our human capability to manage ourselves with it. That technology, progress, and change in our society has hit an exponential rate. And this is the progress line of what's taking place because of technology. And you could see that about 2010 started there to be a gap between human capability of skill development and technology proliferation in our society. You get to 2015, where we're at now, 2020, it's going to leave a lot of people behind. There are plenty of people in the 20th century who were successful, who are going to not be successful in the 21st century because they are not scaling their skills at the same rate that we are scaling change and progress in our society. This is what it looks like to most people when you enter your office each morning. I mean, just try to focus on one of those boxes. And you can see that, number one, it's difficult because all the other boxes around it are competing for your attention. And if you try really hard, what you end up doing is getting a headache and blurry-eyed. That's exactly what's happening inside your office every single day. All these competing priorities and agendas and solicitations of your attention and time is drawing you, and that's the reason why you're overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, and underproducing. In this day and age, you don't just need to focus. We've always needed to focus. You needed to focus in the 18th century, the 19th century, the 20th century. In the 21st century, you need insane focus. Your skill set of keeping your attention and keeping your focus has to be at an insane level. So what I want to try to help you do today, okay, in the short time we've got, is to take this conundrum that you're faced with every single day you walk into your office, and I want to help you do three things. Number one, I want to gray out all those solicitations on your time and attention. That's number one. And then I want to point out the three boxes on that grid that actually matter. And then the third thing I want to do is to help you master those three. Right there, I just gave you the formula between you and Richard Branson, between you and Warren Buffett, between you and the late Steve Jobs, was the formula I just gave you. How to remove the other needless solicitations on your time, energy, and creative capacity, show you the few that matter, and then deepen your skills on those few, and that will dramatically separate you from any of your contemporaries, any of the competitors in your marketplace, any of the other people in your office. So let's do that. What I want to show you to do is to scale your skills at the same rate that we're scaling change and progress within our society. I'm actually excited that these are very difficult times for people to keep up, because I know that I will scale my skills at an aggressive rate, and many people who won't will get left behind. It will be easier to be a superachiever in today's world than it was in the past, because it will be more difficult for most people who don't focus on scaling their skills at the same rate that change and progress is taking place around us. So this is what I call the productivity secrets of superachievers. So the question I'm asked all the time is, all right, all these people who ended up on the cover of Success, because see, there's 7 billion people on the planet, we only get to pick 12. 12 people out of 7 billion to put on the cover of Success magazine. What did these people do that the rest of us not do, that separated them from everybody else? So let me give you the answer. The answer is it had nothing to do with what they do. What Richard Branson does and what Warren Buffett does is not anything different than what you're doing. It's not what they do that actually separates them from you and everybody else. In fact, it's what they don't do. What they don't do has more to do with their success than what it is that they do. You're already doing what everybody you see on the cover of Success magazine is. The problem is all the other crap you're doing is watering that down and diminishing your results. You see, yes is easy. When you say yes, a knock at the door, do you have a minute? Yes, I have a minute. Will you be on this conference call? Yes, I'll be on the conference call. Will you join us for lunch? Yeah, I'll join you for lunch. You want to go out with this couple who you don't even like and go out to dinner? Yes, I'll go out with the couple I don't want to go out with and spend my time doing that. Because there's no argument or resistance in yes. But here's the thing that I want to impose upon you today. The master skill of success is no. The master skill of success is your ability to say no. Now, if you don't want to believe me, believe Warren Buffett. When I asked Warren, I said, what is, in your being the Oracle of Omaha, maybe one of the wisest financial prudent people in the history of humanity, what is the number one key to your great success? If it came down to one thing, what would that one thing be? Now, this is the reason for his $50 billion net worth. This is it right here. Like one answer, here it comes. This is the answer he gave. For every 100 great opportunities that are brought to me, I say no 99 times. The Oracle of Omaha Of all the wise things he could have said, he says that his success is saying no 99 out of 100 times. As a matter of fact, he goes on to say, the difference between successful people and very successful people are, very successful people say no to almost everything. So they have that time to do the thing that actually matters. So, the late Steve Jobs, getting a chance to talk with him, and I said, of all the things that you and Apple have built, what are the things you're most proud of? Because I wanted to know if it was like the revolutionary iPod when he came out with it, or whether it was some small project that never really got commercialized, but he loved it, right? Well, this was his answer. I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. There's this reoccurring theme that seems to show up with all these people who end up becoming these uber achievers. He went on to say that deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. It's true for companies, and it's true for people. He says people think focus means saying yes to the thing you have to focus on. You see, that's what all of us are doing. It's like, what do I got to work on? What do I have to focus on? And he says, no, that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas there are. You have to pick carefully. Success is saying no to 1,000 things. So this is Mark Parker. We have the audio live, right? When he first took over the chair for CEO of Nike, he was having a conversation with Steve Jobs. They were working on the Nike Plus collaboration and asked whether Steve had any advice for him becoming the new CEO of Nike. And so this is Mark talking about that dialogue real quick.
Last night when we were having dinner that when you first got the job as CEO, you got a call from Jobs and he offered you some advice?
Well, he didn't call to offer me advice, but we had worked together on a Nike-Apple collaboration called Nike Plus. So we took what Apple knows, what Nike knows, and brought a new technology to the market. Anyway, long story short, he said, hey, congratulations, it's great, you're going to do a great job. I said, well, do you have any advice? And he said, no, you're great. And then there was a pause, and he goes, well, I do have some advice. He goes, Nike makes some of the best product in the world. I mean, product that you lust after, absolutely beautiful, stunning product. But you also make a lot of crap. He said, just get rid of the crappy stuff and focus on the good stuff. And then I expected a little pause and a laugh, but there was a pause but no laugh at the end. Yeah. And he was absolutely right. And in fact, that's one of my major focal points in terms of my priorities as a CEO and even as a designer when I was growing up at the company, is to edit. I mean, we have so many ideas. Nike is an idea factory.
To edit. So I ask you the question, what crappy stuff do you need to stop doing so that you can focus on the good stuff? Now, I hope that you're hearing me here, because this really is the separating factor. The ability to say no to very tempting, very shiny, very alluring commitments on your time that make you feel good, make you look like a hero, make you be the white knight, all these things that, make you look busy and needed and valued and feel significant and so forth. Your ability to abstain and to say no is truly the big separating factor. I think Kenneth Cole kind of puts it in the one sentence that sums up this of where we're at so far. Success has less to do with what we can get ourselves to do. See, that's what I always thought. I need to be more successful. What else do I need to do? What else do I need to do? And he says, no. Success has less to do with what we can get ourselves to do, and more to do with keeping ourselves from doing what we shouldn't. Peter Drucker put it this way. He says, there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which we should not be doing at all. And most of us spend most of our days trying to be better at doing things that we shouldn't be doing at all. So consider this. If you looked at your calendar last week, okay, so that we can just sort of bring this into your world, make sure that it's applicable. If we looked at your calendar last week, ask yourself this. What should you have said no to that you spent a lot of time and energy on? You know one of the things that'll be interesting, if you look at your calendar last week, how much of your calendar there were no appointments scheduled? Like, in other words, you can't even account for what the hell you did. But you ran around like a crazy person. When you went home and your spouse said, well, how was your day? I'm like, oh, it's so busy. But you can't even account for what it is that you're busy doing, right? Now we start to look forward. If you look at your calendar next week, now you start asking yourself, what should I say no to? Look at your idea list, your project list, your commitment list, and your communication list, and start wiping it clean. What can I start saying no to? By the way, if you want, I see a lot of you writing feverishly. I'm going to go through these quickly. We'll go through them a lot. If you want a copy of the whole slide deck, I promised Tom Sweet, beautiful person who invited me to come and be with you, fine people today, that I would give you the whole slide deck so that you would have it as a reference point. The other thing that I will do is I'll give you an audio recording of this entire talk. So if you want to hear it again or you want to go back to your team and share it with them, you are welcome to do so. The only thing that I ask is that you do not post it publicly on YouTube or anywhere else, okay? We got a deal? So all you do is just text your name and email address to that phone number. It'll send you the link to the site where you can download the slide deck. There's a lot of worksheets that will help you think through a lot of these things. There's the audio recording of it as well. But do it in 48 hours because I have another commitment and it will go to that other conference, okay? So if you didn't get the number, it's over on the left-hand side as we carry forth. So then you might be saying, okay, well, if all you're telling me to do is to stop doing everything, obviously that's not going to ultimately take you to the land of success. There's got to be some things that we have to do. So what do we do then? Well, success is not going to be by you doing many things, spinning many plates, juggling multiple balls. Instead, it's going to be a factor of doing fewer things and then doing those fewer things at a level of mastery. See, super achievers learn to focus on what I call the vital few. And this is going to end up being your execution framework, the vital few. It's better to be world-class at a few things than mediocre at many. You see, what happens is we all try to be good at a lot of things, and we end up mediocre at everything. We never get world-class at anything. And the world forgets us because we never became world-class at anything. When you look at the faces that appear on the screen here, these are people who will be forever remembered in history. These are the people who pushed human progress forward, did something significant. They're known to be world-class. But the thing that's interesting that you need to know is they're known to be world-class at probably one thing. And if you read their biographies, they were rather mediocre, if not even a little bit terrible, in much of the rest of their lives. But they were world-class, and history will remember their contribution because they were world-class at one thing. So what are you going to be world-class at? If there's one thing that you could become world-class at, what is that one thing? Whether it's a skill, whether it's a contribution, what is it that you'll be world-class at? So I coach CEOs of a variety of companies all over the country, all over the world, in fact. Doug Traylor, who's here, is in one of my elite groups. And with this elite group, we go to these great, fantastic resorts all over the world. And this was at the Grand Del Mar in Del Mar, California. And a few of the guys wanted to come in early and play golf. And I'm like, guys, they invited me to play. And I'm like, I don't really play a lot of golf. I'm not really that good at it. He's like, no, we just want to be with you. Just doesn't matter how you play. Just come out and be with us. I'm like, you're going to be sorry you invited me. And they're like, no, just come out. So I agreed to it. And we get out on the first tee box. And I said, all right, gentlemen, I'm going to give you a workshop here today. And they're like, oh, that's pretty cocky talk for a guy who says he doesn't play much golf. I said, yeah, just trust me on this. And so I said, I'll tee off first. I go up there and I put the ball down and I take my club. And, I'm an athlete. I've played some sports. So I kind of take this and I just reach back, that backswing where you're scratching your shin, on the backstroke. And I just put this Herculean swing on it and just crush this drive, okay? And it goes like this, in the trees. And I dropped the club and I said, gentlemen, workshop over. They're like, no, dude, your ball's out of bounds. You got to hit it again. I said, I just proved to you why superachievers suck at golf. And most every other thing. Because this game takes too much damn time. If I were good at golf, you wouldn't have flown into Del Mar to be part of my elite CEO group. So what happens here is that to become world-class at one thing, you have to relegate lots of other things to mediocrity, if not even to being really, really bad at. And so I'm going to suggest that you make a give-up list. Because, see, that's a lot of people's problem, is we're trying to be good at a lot of things. We end up mediocre at everything and never really great at anything. And so to become world class, to become great at one thing, you've got to reallocate time. So this is my give up list. Now I'm just sharing you mine. You don't have to take mine. I'm just giving you an example so that you can create a framework for your own. So I gave up television. I don't watch TV. I have no idea what television programs are popular. I've never seen a Housewives of this or a Voice of that or an American of this or nothing. I have no idea what goes on in television. The average American, what, 8 hours plus a day? Imagine what you could do with 8 hours of refocused time, right? I mean, even if it's 2 to 4 hours, enormous amount of time. I give up news. I don't watch any news. I don't listen to any news. I don't read any news whatsoever. I know some of you will disagree with that, but I have this sort of divide and conquer sort of mentality, which is like, okay, you've got cancer, you've got the whales, you've got Afghanistan, you've got global warming. I've got success. Like, you can sleep at night knowing that I'm going to go and champion success, and I'll sleep at night knowing that you've got military ships handling our business over yonder. And I don't have to pay attention to that, and you don't have to pay attention to this, right? So if it doesn't affect my goals, my family, and the dreams and ambitions that I'm after, what I'm trying to be world class in, I'm just going to assume you all got that and I got this, right? So I don't listen, watch, or read any news. And I know some people that spend hours all day, every day, trying to just absorb the world's worst. Because that's all news is. The worst things that are happening in the world paraded morning, noon, and night. And you're just soaking all that in, and then you're trying to go out there and be inspired and be productive. Not helpful. Now, again, I don't expect you to adopt my list, but I'll watch it. It's interesting, but I don't follow any sports. I always figure, like, if people just took the amount of time that they spend following other people's career and reinvested in their own career, their statistics would go up dramatically, right? So I don't follow any sports. Music. My iTunes library is empty except for all the Success CDs that get imported in every time I put it in my computer. Again, I'm not saying you need to take on this list. This is just all the time I would have been trying to get the cover albums to match my iTunes library, I put into my one thing. Bodybuilding. I used to live here in South Beach once before. I live here half-time now. And when I did, I sold a company and I was just going to retire for a while. That was a great mistake. And all I did was work out for 2 or 3 hours a day. And I was like 220, with 20 pounds heavier than I am right now, all muscle. And I said, forget it, it's too much time. I'm just going to stay healthy. And I took the 2 extra hours that I was spending doing that, reallocated it towards my one thing. I live on 2 coasts, San Diego and here in South Beach, and I don't surf. Now, I envy people who surf and they find their like spiritual bliss out there. I just took that time and reallocated it to my one thing. Mechanics. Now, this one I'm a little embarrassed by, but besides a pen and a fork in my hand, and I'm totally retarded. Like this one time in San Diego, I used the bathroom down the hall from my office instead of our master bathroom, and my wife was catching me walking down the hall going to the powder room. She's like, why don't you use your own bathroom? I'm like, the toilet broke. She said, well, you've been doing this for like a month now. I'm like, yeah, it broke a long time ago. She says, well, why don't you fix it? I'm like, I don't know how to fix it. She said, well, come in here. She goes into my bathroom and she takes off the top of the tank. I'm like, oh, that's how you get that thing off, right? And so she takes the chain, puts it back on the lever, and flushes the toilet. She says, it's fixed. Now, again, I'm not proud about how retarded I am as a mechanic, but I took all the time and energy that I would have spent doing that. On Saturday, a wife usually has the honey-do list. I go and say, honey, who can I hire to do what you need to get done, right? So that's my life, and much, much more. And so all these things where I'm retarded or mediocre in my life, all those things, the time and energy and life force and capacity I would have spent there, I reallocated it to my one thing. And my one thing is what we're doing here right now. Okay, so you'll have to come up with your own give-up list of sorts, where you just relegate it. Like, take the pride and the ego you've got about having to be, proficient at something and just give it up, and then take the time and energy and put it towards your one thing. So I ask you, what are you going to give up so that you can get what you really want? Because most of the things that you're spending a lot of time and energy putting effort towards, you don't really care, actually, to be great at. But yet, it's still taking life force from you. So let me just sum up where we're at so far, okay? Number 1 is this. Stop doing most of the things that you're doing. Literally, we took 99% of all the things you're spending your time on each and every day. Most of it is not productive. Then focus on the few things that are and that matter, and then master them. Then go about drilling deep on the mastery of those few skills. And I'm telling you, the difference between what could be your success a year from now versus where you're at right now, if you just did that formula right here, would be dramatic. I'm talking about a multiplied outcome of where you're at right now, if you just did that 3-point formula right there. So let me show you the vital few, understanding your vital signs of strategic productivity. Okay, so if you get in a car wreck and your leg's sticking out of your leg meat and and you're bleeding out your ear and so forth, and you're rushed to the emergency room, what's the first thing they're going to do? Right. They're not going to worry about your bone sticking out of your leg or the blood coming out of your ear. They're going to check your vital signs, because they could be working on your leg and not realize that your heart rate is dropping precipitously and you could be dead before they bandage up your leg. So the first thing they do is figure out where your vital signs are. Same thing when it comes to your productivity. There are things that are vital, metrics that are vital to your productivity. While you're going and chasing the extremities, the fires that are happening over here, the loud voices, the solicitations, the sirens call, you could actually be killing your productivity and not even knowing it. So let's talk about what are those vital signs. There are vital few functions, vital few priorities, vital few metrics, and vital few improvements. If all you do is focus on the few in each of these categories, I'm telling you where you could be a year from now is extraordinary. We'll walk through these real quick. Vital few functions. These are the few functions that matter the most. The reason why you're paid what you're paid. These are the functions that make you the rainmaker of your particular job position. When I spent time with this guy here, I love this guy, Mehmet Oz, an extraordinary human being. I mean, when I met him, he had his Emmy Award-winning TV show already. He was still doing 200 open heart surgeries a year. And he has a whole line of best-selling books, 2 nonprofit organizations. The guy was just prolific. And I'm spending time with him, and he's the most relaxed, calm, non-stressed, not looking at any smartphone, none of the rest of that guy. And I said, Mehmet, how are you doing this? How are you pulling all this off? Because, man, I'm doing 1/10 of what you're doing, and I'm running around like a crazy person. He said, I learned a long time ago that there are only a vital few functions that are important in any endeavor. He says, for instance, take heart surgery. He says, there's 1,000 little procedures that are done in the midst of a heart procedure. He says, but I don't clean the room or the instruments or even open up the body cavity. He says, I have staff that do that, and then they get it to a point, and now it's time for those vital few functions. Those are the things that I do. So I walk in cleaned up, and then I perform those vital few functions. Now, these are vital because if they're done well, patient survives. They're done wrong, patient dies. And so I've got to be ready to be excellent at those vital few. I do those vital few, and then I leave the room and have the staff take care of the rest. It's the same thing when it comes to a TV show. He said, I don't edit the commercials and put the staging light around. He says, there's a vital few functions that they're expecting me to be excellent at, to be ready, prepared, and on point. And so I work on those vital few functions. I show up, I deliver those vital few functions, I leave the rest to a capable team. Same thing with running a nonprofit, same thing with writing up a line of best-selling books. And so what he said is, you have to identify your vital few functions. What are the vital few functions that only you can do? And it's the reason why you're the rainmaker. And then leave the rest to a capable team and get excellent at those vital few. Now, there are not 5,000 functions that are important for you to do to be successful at what you do. That's the mistake most people make. In fact, it always comes down to less than a half a dozen. I'll give you, for instance, when I was in real estate, there are 5,000 functions you could mistake that are needed to do to be productive in real estate. If any of you are familiar with this, I'll just read off a few. Get the permit report from the city, meet with the selling agent, check on the septic tank history, review the utility bills, send thank you gifts, prospect, show property, go on broker tour, get buyer pre-qualified. 5,000 things you can run around like your head cut off and be productive, right? I learned real quickly there are only 3 things that matter. When I do them, and only I can do these 3 things, you can't delegate, can't have a staff do these 3 things, only I can do it. And when I do them, we get paid. The cash register rings. Those things were pitching a listing, negotiating a contract, and prospecting. And when I did these things, we made money. And when I was doing the other things, we weren't. And so I became so fanatical about focusing my time on these 3 things that I actually bought a stopwatch and wore it around my neck. And every time I was doing one of those 3 things, I turned it on. As soon as I stopped doing one of those things, I turned it off. So for instance, I'm prospecting, going door to door. Knock, knock, knock. Door opens, turn it on. Talk, talk, talk. Door closes, turn it off. Down the driveway, up the driveway, knock, knock, knock. Door opens, on. Door closes, off. Go home, ring, ring, ring. Phone answers, on. Phone down, off. So the first day that I did this, I just wanted to set the bar really high, just to crush it, right? So every day thereafter, I'd have to try to match that number. I was a little crazy back yonder, right? So I put in this 16-hour day. I mean, it's 10:30 at night. I'm exhausted, and I wouldn't let myself look at it all day. And now it's time for the big reveal as I turn it over. So that first day, putting in 16 hours, guess how much time I was able to log? 2 hours, 3 hours? 19 minutes and 54 seconds. Now, I put in a 16-hour day. I mean, just worked like a crazy. If you asked any of my office mates, was he productive or was he screwing up? No, that guy's crazy. He won't even talk to us in the hallway. But the amount of time I was actually doing anything that mattered was only 19 minutes and 54 seconds. When I saw that, that is when I became a crazy person. Getting it from 20 minutes to 40 minutes was unbelievable. The first time I got it up over an hour, I threw an office-wide party. In my 4 years in real estate, I think I got it up to 4 hours, maybe a dozen times. Which means what? In 4 years, I worked a half day a dozen times. When you figure out what your vital few functions are, like the things that only you can do, because that's why you get paid the big bucks. Like you don't get paid the big bucks to drive around papers and all the things that, files and all the other conversations that you're having. But the few things that make it rain and only you can do, when you figure out what those few things are, and if all you take from what our time here is identify your vital few functions that only you can do and time them, the amount of time that you're spending on them. First of all, the first time you do that, you have a shocking reality about how little time you're actually spending doing anything that matters. And then if all you do over the next year, 90 days, 30 days, is try to increase that number every single day, you'll multiply your productivity, you'll multiply your results, you'll multiply anything that you can accomplish in life. Simple as that. How do you do only the vital few? That's the big question. It's like, well, I got all these other things that I've got to get done. How do you do the vital few? First thing you have to understand is how valuable you are. What your time is worth. Now, you all have seen this before. I will tell you you're violating it every day, but you've got to remind yourself of the math. You've got to remind yourself of the value. So if you take your income goal and divide it by 2,000, that's your hourly rate. That's what you're worth on an hourly basis. So, for instance, you make $100,000 a year, your time's worth $50 an hour. Make $250,000 a year, your time's worth $125 an hour. You make $1 million a year, your time's worth $500 an hour. Now, that means if you want to make $250,000 a year, okay, every hour upon the hour, you've got to be doing something that's worth $125 an hour. Like, you would pay somebody else $125 an hour to do what you're doing because it's that valuable. So it's like this. Imagine January 1st, you woke up, you went into your bank account, and you're like, oh, somebody deposited $250,000 in my account. Oh, my God. And all you got to do is keep it. But every hour on the hour throughout that year that you don't do something that's worth $125 an hour, the difference gets taken out of your account. And that's what happens. People on December 31st, they go to their account, and they go, and they look it up. $82,000? What happened to the $250,000 I had here? Well, what happened was that little cat video that you got on YouTube that ran into another video, and it was 20 minutes. 20 minutes can go like that, right? Well, what happens is in 20 minutes, what you have to do is take out your wallet, take out a $20 bill, take out another $20 bill, hold them up and light them on fire. Because you just cost yourself $40. 20 minutes. See, a lot of people think that YouTube is free. Oh, no. Facebook, Twitter, those aren't free. Those are so expensive on your time because they're costing you so much time. You want to invoke the rule of three. Figure out what your three functions are, those vital functions we talked about, and try to spend 90% of your time on those. What do you do best? What can only you do? And then delegate or discontinue the rest. Delegate or discontinue the rest. Build a support team. In this day and age, the ability to get virtual assistants, I don't even care if you're an employee. Your ability to hire virtual assistants to do low volume, low pay work so that you could stay focused on your vital few is essential, absolutely essential. Always ask yourself, would I pay somebody else $125 to do what I'm doing right now? Would I pay somebody $125 to make comments on my blog, to respond to somebody's Facebook notification? If the answer is no, stop doing it. You can't afford you doing it. See, people, for some reason, violate and abuse their own time. And that's all you've got in life. As soon as you're born, there's a fuse that's lit. And that fuse is burning every minute on the minute. And it's getting shorter and shorter. All you have is time. Don't mistreat time. So what's better than a few? If you get your world identified down to a few vital functions, what's even better than a few? Yeah, one. Right, exactly. I learned it from this guy here, Joel Osteen. Now, a lot of people see him as a Christian televangelist and so forth. I don't. I see him as a CEO of a several $100-million organization, which is, in fact, what he is. And so I said to Joel, man, you're reaching 40 million people a week. You got this large organization. We're basically in the same business, trying to inspire hope and abundance in people's lives. You're killing it, and I'm not. How are you doing all this? And he says, you know, when I first took over the church from my father, he says, I was trying to do it all. He says, I was doing weddings and baptisms and funerals, and he says, I was even, adjusting the lights, for the stage before we went on air. And he said, our organization stalled. It couldn't grow any further than my calendar could stretch. I realized that I was the main constraint. Number one, I was killing myself, and secondly, we were stalled. So he said, I had to figure out how to stop doing as many things as possible. So I asked myself the question, what's the one thing that I do that has the greatest contribution to our overall success? And he said, I realized it was the 22 minutes on Sunday. If those 22 minutes are inspiring and hopeful and funny and engaging, it drives the rest of the engine. He said, so I stopped doing everything but those 22 minutes. So literally his schedule to this day, Wednesday he just thinks, reads, and drafts ideas about what he might want to talk about on Sunday. The whole day. Does nothing but sort of enriches himself so he can think about what he wants to do on Sunday. Thursday, he writes out his sermon word for word. The whole day, he can't reach him. Family can't reach him. Staff can't reach him. Friday, he spends the whole day just memorizing it. You ever seen him on Sunday? Like the guy, no notes, magic, right? Saturday, he delivers it twice to a closed group inside his church. Sunday, lights, action, camera, bam. I mean, I could say he's one of the best keynote speakers of our day. He has to do 22 brand new keynotes every single year. Most speakers have one stump speech, and that's it. That's how they spend their career. He's got to do 22 new ones a year. How can he do that? Because it's all he does. All week, throughout the whole week, just for 22 minutes. And now he reaches 40 million people instead of the small church that he started with in Houston. And so I ask you to ask yourself, what is your one highest activity? The one thing you do. When you do it, you're not getting paid $125 an hour. You're getting paid thousands of dollars an hour. Because that activity is so valuable to driving the economic engine of your business. You figure out what that is, and then arrange your life to try to do nothing but, or as much as possible, more percentage of just doing that one thing. Your world will change. So here's your goal. You want to do fewer functions more often and get better at them. Now let's talk about the vital few priorities. Okay? A lot of people don't understand the difference between a function and a priority. A function is, what is that job description thing that you do that makes it rain? A priority is, what are the tasks that have to be done underneath that function in order to create an outcome. Like, for instance, one of my vital functions is, it's three things. Curating and creating content, speaking for organizations like this to enroll people into the success community, and any public-facing spokesperson, PR, media type work. Now, I'm the publisher, editor of the magazine. You would think, well, isn't it editing meetings and advertising meetings and content and editorial meetings? No, those aren't the three greatest contributions that I provide to the organization. And so let's just take speaking to organizations like this. Well, a vital priority might be preparing a new presentation for an upcoming talk. That's a vital priority underneath a vital function of mine. So these are vital few priorities. The problem is that we suffer from what's called the lion syndrome. The lion syndrome is this. How can an 800-pound killing machine, the greatest machine devised by God to kill prey, is the king of the jungle, the lion. How can a 100-pound human being stay off a killing machine with a simple bar stool and a little whip, when the lion could take one swipe of his paw and remove the head from the shoulders of that human being? The reason is that lion, when he sees the bar stool, doesn't see one bar stool. It sees the 4 legs, and it's 4 threats coming at it simultaneously. And in the overwhelm of all that threat, it submits. It goes docile. Same thing happens when you walk into your office, and you're hit with all these priorities and all these solicitations on your attention. And in the overwhelm of all of that, you think, I'll just check email. I'll just go on Facebook. Oh, yes, I have a minute. And you submit. You go docile. That's what happens in what's called the lion syndrome. In the face of too many priorities, it creates paralysis. I really learned this from this guy here, Richard Branson. So we had him on the cover of Success Magazine, and a client company wanted to hire him to come speak at their conference. And they asked us if we would contact him, and because we had a relationship now, and we don't like to use our relationships like this, but this company actually was responsible for 60,000 subscriptions to Success Magazine, so we were kind of between a rock and a hard spot. So we called them up and we said, this company wants to hire you to speak at their conference. They're willing to pay you $100,000, which was kind of a stick in my side because they hire me to speak and they don't pay me $100,000. But he's Richard Branson. And would you please speak for their organization? He flatly declined. Called them back and says, no, he said no. He says, well, offer him $250,000. We really want him to speak at our conference. Call him back. They want to offer you $250,000. Flatly declines. Call him back and says, he said no. He says, well, we've already started telling people that we might have Richard Branson at our conference. So I'll tell you what, we'll send our private plane. We'll pick him up. As soon as his foot hits the cement at the conference, we'll have him back on the plane in less than an hour, pay him $500,000 for an hour. Call him back and says, $500,000, flatly declines. And then they're now really, it's becoming kind of an ego issue for them. So they're like, just tell him to name his price. Blank check, whatever he needs to get paid, we'll pay him for an hour. Call him back, name your price. Richard Branson's staff says, right now Richard is focused on 3 strategic priorities, and he will only allow us to allocate his calendar to something that significantly contributes to the accomplishment of one of those 3 strategic priorities, and speaking for a fee is not one of them. That's what's called focus. I remember telling a friend of mine, oh yeah, Richard Branson just turned $500,000 to speak for a company for an hour. And he's like, oh yeah, well, of course, he's Richard Branson. You know, I could never turn down $500,000 to speak for an hour. And I said, well, that's why you're not Richard Branson. Because he didn't just start having this focus. The reason why he's gotten to where he is because he's had this focus all along the way. The difference between you and Richard Branson is this as well. You figure out what your 3 strategic priorities are, and with no shiny, no desirous or temptuous offer will you be distracted. And what you could accomplish would become awesome. Remember what I said? The most important skill of the 21st century is learning to control your attention and keep your focus. That's what he's mastered. I have a friend of mine who finally got his arms around this because he has the disease every entrepreneur salesperson has, which is, it's like a mosquito in a nudist colony. It's like, we don't lack for opportunity, we just lack for, priority, right? So now when anybody comes into his office with a new idea, he always says, what the focus, pal? We have our 3 strategic priorities. Just stay focused. Jim Collins says if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. Warren Buffett, let me give you his method for prioritizing. This is worth the cost of admission to be here, okay? This is how he keeps himself prioritized. Number 1 is he writes down all the priorities he has on a yellow legal pad of paper. As many pages as it takes. All the priorities going on in his world at any one time. We've all heard that before. Number 2, he then narrows it down to his top 3. We've all heard that before as well. Now, what separates the rest of us from Warren Buffett is point number 3. Now he takes the entire list, but those 3, and throws it away. So none of it has the ability to leak any capacity or any bandwidth or any life force while he's focused on those top 3 priorities. And once those top 3 priorities are fully executed, then he goes and just makes a new list. And he says, it's funny, when I make the new list, a lot of the things I thought were so important on the first list don't even reappear on the list again. And so that's a Little tip from Buffett. So what's better than a few? If you isolate your focus down to a few priorities, what's even better than a few? Of course, one. Now, the master of the one priority was certainly Steve Jobs. He learned this in the wilderness years as well as when he took over Pixar. And Pixar is a movie studio who only produces one movie a year. Now, if you're familiar with Hollywood, if you're a movie studio, you produce 20, 30 movies. You hope one or two are successful to pay for all the losers. That's how you mitigate your risk. They only do one, which means that it's sink or swim every single year of their existence. But what Steve realized is when you can get a creative group of people to focus on only one thing with no other option, one thing, he says that's how you create revolutionary breakthroughs. So when he took back over Apple, he applied that strategy where they only focused on the iPod. The only new product they delivered was the iPod. And it wasn't for 7 years later that they came out with the next new product, which was the iPhone. Now, you got to remember, Samsung, Sony, the rest of them, they're putting out dozens and dozens of products in between these iterations. And then it was the iPad, and then it was a focus on retail. And through this one focus priority, they became the most valuable brand in the world over the Samsungs and the Sonys and the rest of that. One big thing at a time. Steve would actually spend, now you got to remember, he's running 2 publicly held companies. You know what the demands of the CEO are for running a publicly held company? And the multi-billions, right? The shareholder meetings, the investors, the legal liability, all that stuff. He would spend 3 hours every day focused on whatever was the number one priority for Apple at any one time. Whatever the number one priority was for Apple that day, 3 hours of his calendar was focused on just that. Imagine if you took your number one priority and you spent 3 hours on it every single day. What you could accomplish would stagger your competition, no doubt. So the great challenge of our times, though, we talked about, is this constant solicitation on your attention, dragging you in a multitude of different directions. This is the great weapons of mass distraction that we have to deal with. And we love this distraction, by the way. We're addicted to it. We love it. We love this distraction. The reason why it's so profound and prolific is we actually love it. You see, what happens is it offers you some form of relief. If you're prospecting or you're planning or you're working on some marketing copy and you know when it gets difficult and somebody knocks at the door or you get a little a text or you get a ring of the phone, internally, you might not say it out loud, but you go, oh, I can finally have some justifiable excuse to stop doing what it is that I'm doing and focus on this emergency. We have this insatiable thirst for novelty. What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? And then lastly, we want to be wanted. This is the biggest disease of what happens out there in today's world. I mean, even Facebook, the button is called what? Like. I mean, we're like kids on a schoolyard. We would post something on Facebook and then we sit there and refresh. Refresh. 5 people like it. 5 people like me. I mean, it's absolute. If you just back up from this for a second, see what's happened was it's the boiled frog syndrome. You know the boiled frog syndrome. You put a frog in a room temperature water and it boils, simmer ever so slightly, because it doesn't notice, it will be boiled to death. What's happening with what's going on in our culture is it's happening around us ever so slightly, and our productivity, our focus, our sanity is being boiled to death with what's going on. And it's this, we want to be wanted. I mean, you get a text on your phone, it's like dopamine, right? It's like a drug. Oh, somebody loves me. Somebody needs email. Somebody needs me. You go to your email and refresh, and there's no new email, and you're like, you feel so unwanted, right? It's crazy what's going on. The consequences were overwhelmed, overstimulated, overscheduled, overspent, and unproductive. On an average, we are distracted every 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes. Now, here's the problem. It takes 11 minutes to regain concentration. Anybody see any problem with that math? This is the reason why most of us have not actually entered a state of creative focus or of concentration in the last many years. It's called creative atrophy. It's like REM sleep. Okay, so you know that it's not the amount of time that you spend in bed that determines the quality of your rest. It's the amount of time you spend in REM. Young mothers would be able to tell you, right? If you get woken up 5, 6 times in the middle of the night, even if your total log time in bed is 10 hours, you will wake up exhausted. if there's a branch that knocks at the side of your house, or a dog barks and it pulls you out of REM repeatedly, it doesn't matter how much time you spend in bed. You'll still wake up exhausted. Same thing when it comes to you at the office. Doesn't matter how much time you spend at the office. Only matters the amount of time you spend in productive REM. You actually could spend a third of the amount of time at the office if that third was allocated to productive REM. For instance, you want to go from reacting to creating. What happens is, in your office, you're spending most of your day reacting. Do you realize that when you get an email or a text or an RSS feed or a blog comment, all those things are solicitations of somebody else's agenda that you're reacting to? And most of us are spending 90, 95, 99% of our time reacting rather than creating, rather than going, what are the priorities and goals that I've got with no distraction from anybody else and anybody else's agenda? I'm going to focus on these things that matter to me and my family. Another 28% of productive focus is wasted on multitasking. There's no such thing as multitasking. You can walk and chew gum, but you cannot process two things cognitively at the same time. You cannot listen to a conference call and check email at the same time. Cognitively, that is absolutely impossible. But what it is switching. See, you're listening to a conference call and you're hearing what's being said and you're comprehending it, or you're reading email. But when you're reading email, you are not consciously actually absorbing what's being said in the conference call. And when you're listening to the conference call, you really can't intelligently read email. What you're doing is just switching back and forth cognitively. And when you switch, it makes you dumber than if you were stoned. CNN says that when you switch, your IQ drops by 10 points. When you are baked out of your head, it only drops by 5. So most of us are walking around all day as absolute potheads, stoners, in terms of our cognitive capability to be productive. And like a muscle that goes unused, we have created attention atrophy. We've actually lost the ability to focus and to stay focused and stay into creative REM. We're losing our ability to stay concentrated. So just to take a poll here. Of all the forms of distraction, now all of us are subject to all of these, but what would you say is your number one, like the biggest piece of kryptonite in your life in terms of distracting you from your focus? Of those options right there, how many people would say email? Okay, yeah, it's a big one for me. Phone calls or texts, okay? News updates. We have any politicos in here? Okay. Office drop-ins? You in a chaotic environment where people come and drop? Okay. Self-induced multitasking. You know what's funny is that's always the most popular. Thank you for being honest, by the way. But that's the one you're doing to yourself. Like the rest of these, you're subject to having to sort of thwart the outside world, but that one we're actually doing to ourselves. So now that you know that it makes you dumber than if you were stoned, maybe you'll work on that one. What we don't want to do is we don't want to mistake movement for achievement. Just because you're running around with your head cut off all day doesn't mean you're actually achieving anything, or activity for productivity, or rushing around for results. We've all had the experience where you go home and your spouse says, well, how was your day? And you're like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Well, what did you do? Well, you said that you wanted to get all these goals done. What did you do today? Yeah. But you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, and you were crazy busy all day. And that's the mistake is we think that activity, that rushing around, that movement is actually productive, and it's not. You want to measure results by scale, not volume. I have a friend of mine who's a billionaire. And all he does is he gets up and he does only one thing all day. One thing. Every day it's different. One thing. He will not allow himself to do anything more than one thing. Now, his one thing is a really friggin' big thing. And if it's done by 8 or 10 o'clock in the morning, he's done for the day. If it takes until 9 at night, but it's only one thing. He won't allow anything else on his calendar but one thing. And because he's had that practice for 30 years now, he made himself a billionaire by doing one thing a day. Amazing. So, scale, not volume. Give you some strategies, how to apply what we've just talked about. Strategies of high performance. Here's something that will triple your productivity immediately. Triple the productivity of the average Fortune 500 CEO. So the average CEO logs about how much of genuine productivity each day. We're talking about the highest achievers in our society at the corporate level, right? Who have all the staff and ways to delegate. How much time do you think the average CEO spends on focused productivity? Any guesses? 1 hour, 3 hours? Fortune came back and said 90 minutes. And then Jack Welch saw that report and said, absolute BS, I don't buy it, and called them out in the Wall Street Journal and said, I do not believe that the average Fortune 500 CEO spends 90 minutes on anything productive. And so after calling them out in the Wall Street Journal, they redid the study 2 years later, and it came back as 28 minutes. This is the Fortune 500 CEO running our major corporations, do less than a half hour of anything that actually matters throughout a 10, 12, 14, 16-hour day that they're at the office. See, focus is a skill every bit of foundation to success as reading or writing. When you control your attention, you finally control your life. And to build the muscle of concentration and creative focus, it develops like a muscle. What goes unused, you lose. And if you want to build it, it's a matter of putting incredible stress and strain on a muscle. Over and over. Incredible stress and strain in short bursts period of time. And then in rest and recovery, it grows back bigger than it was before, and it could do more than it could before. So I want to show you the productivity intervals of elite achievers. Those people that go on to become Olympic athletes, that go end up doing extraordinary things in the marketplace. These are what are called the productivity intervals of elite athletes. It's what's called sprint and recover. Intensity, and then recover. So let me show it to you. Let's first talk about sprint. What I do is called 90-minute jam sessions. For 90 minutes, you know you can't actually be productive in a concentrated state more than 90 minutes. I don't care if you're a violin virtuoso, piano virtuoso, you practice in tennis, baseball, football. After 90 minutes, your productive rate starts to diminish. But for 90 minutes, you can stay in a deep state of concentrated creative focus. So I do what are called 90-minute jam sessions. To set up a 90-minute jam session, you've got to create a bubble of silence around you. Because if anything breaks you out of that creative REM, it'll take 11 minutes to get back into it, and you probably won't. So you have to create a bubble of silence. Turn off your phone, put a sign on the door to not be disturbed until I'll reemerge at this period of time, whatever. Bubble of silence. The second thing is a countdown clock, so you actually see where it is that you're at. I get this on Amazon, like $14. I have it on my desk. I have it on my desk in both places that I live, wherever I go. And I start a 90-minute jam session, and that's all I'm going to do is work on this one thing for 90 minutes. You do this, I'm telling you, the first time you do it, you'll be working on this one thing. I've been wanting to get to this marketing campaign for the longest time. You'll be working on it, you hit a mental wall, and you're like, God, I must be almost done. You'll look up at the clock, and you're like, oh my God, 78 minutes left. And you'll go and you work on it again, you go like, I got to be almost done by now. And you look up, you're like, 61 minutes. You'll realize how difficult it is for you to only work on one thing. You'll see how atrophied your concentration muscle really is. Now, you do it 2, 3, 4 times. The other thing you realize is how much incredible outcome you can create in a 90-minute period of time. I mean, incredible productivity in a concentrated, focused effort period of 90 minutes. You'll become addicted to your jam sessions because, look, you're flying through 90 minutes all the time and getting nothing done, nothing to show for it. You do these focused 90 minutes, and you'll have these big consequential outcomes to produce. And then next is recover. You got to recover. Look, getting you to do the 90-minute jam session is going to be easier than me getting you to actually take the time to recover properly because you're an addicted achiever. That's the reason why you're here. That's the reason why you're the top of your business, because you're an achiever. And the one thing that you have a hard time doing is justifying actually resting, which means that you're in this state of overtired, overworked period of time, and you're low productivity. So you have to take the time to recover. The problem is the absence of discipline and intermittent recovery. Chronic stress without recovery depletes energy reserves, leads to burnout, breakdown, and ultimately undermines performance. If you're going to train an Olympic athlete, the thing you're going to have to focus on with that athlete is not their exercise program and their training regimen. The reason why they got to that level is because they train like a beast. The thing you have to focus on is locking them in the room and forcing the recovery. Because when the gun goes off and you got 100 yards, the difference between who wins and who comes in third, that split second is going to be who's got the most in the tank at the time that it matters. Same thing with you at the office as well. I mean, it's true that most workers are overtired and underutilized in terms of their creative capacity. And that's what's stifling their ultimate outcome. and it's because they lack the rest, recovery, and revitalization. Game-changing mindset shift I want to give you is to understand that you get paid to rest. If I am a sponsor of an Olympic athlete, and I know that his or her outcome is going to be on how rest, recovered, and vitalized they are before the competition, I am paying them to rest and recover because their performance is going to hang in the balance. Same thing with you. When you are resting and recovering, you're getting paid. Because in order for you to be productive on Monday, to be at your highest level of productivity, you have to be revitalized and recovered. Go down to the vital few metrics. Let me boil it down to you in a real simple formula. I call it my massive transformation formula. Number one is you want to take your life and just boil it down to 3 goals. I don't care if you got 100 goals, 1,000 places you want to see before you die, a bucket list of 50 things. 3 goals. The 3 goals that if you accomplish this year would make 2015 the best year of your life. And I know a lot of you have had some great years. But what would it take for 2015 to be the best? The best ever. Well, if I accomplish this at this level, then, but if I accomplish this and that, wow, now that. But if I accomplish this, that, and this at the same time, definitely, no question about it, best year of my life. Great. If those are the 3, throw all the rest away. Because if this is what it takes to make it the best year of your life, all the rest of them will only distract and take life force away from accomplishing those 3. Figure out what your big 3 are, number 1. Number 2, what are the 2 to 3 key behaviors most important for you to accomplishing each one of those big 3? That's it. And then track it. Let me show you. You want to cash out every day. Are you on track or are you off track? This is what I call my weekly rhythm register. It's in the goal achieving program I've used for 20 years. And what you do is you take your big 3 goals, you boil it down to your 2 or 3 behaviors. So let's say your big goals are increase your sales by 30%, lose 15 pounds, increase the intimacy in your marriage. Okay? If you did those 3 things, best year. Fantastic. What are the 2 or 3 behaviors most important for each of those goals? Well, in increasing your sales, maybe it's the number of hours you spend prospecting, number of sales appointments where you're belly to belly with a qualified client. Lose 15 pounds, number of days you do 60 minutes of exercise, drink 10 glasses of water if that's your constraint. Increase the intimacy in your marriage. Maybe you find out the love language of your spouse is expressions of appreciation. And then magic moments, those things that you do something romantic for no damn reason at all, right? Come home with flowers for no good reason, right? A little note left in their briefcase, a little sticky on their dashboard, you're so amazing, whatever. Little magic moments. So if that's your game plan, that's it. That's all you got to figure out. Big 3 goals, 2, 3 behaviors. Now, all you have to do is each day figure it out. Did you do it? On Sunday, you say, okay, I'm going to do this one 6 times, 4 times, 5, 6, 10, 3. Takes you less than 3 minutes to plan out your day. And then at the end of every day, you just go check, check, uh-oh, check, uh-oh. And at the end of the week, are you on track or are you off track? I don't care whether you got 300 companies like Richard Branson or you're running your business as you are, you can roll it all up to a single page dashboard and this is it. Those are your big 3 goals that make this the best year of your life, the 2 or 3 key behaviors most important to accomplishing those goals. And all you got to do is chart the amount of times you need to do it and then just check in every day. Did it or not? It's as simple as this. I don't care how sophisticated, complicated your business is. It's all as simple as this. Not doing this, not tracking this, not identifying the 3 and the key behaviors and measuring on a day-to-day basis, that's what causes complicated failures. Vital improvements, last piece. Where is it that you need to improve your skills the most in order to accomplish the goals that you've got? You see, you are at the center of your universe. The world is responding and reacting to you. Every conversation you enter, you change the conversation. You're like lightning in a bottle for every engagement that you step into. And when you change, everything around you changes. You truly are 100% responsible for all the situations that happen around you by your engagement. I kind of call it what was called a personal development set point. It's like a thermostat, right? It doesn't matter what's happening outside, it'll keep the room temperature the same on the inside. So if you set it at 70 degrees, all of a sudden it gets really hot, it'll kick up the air conditioner, bring the temperature back down to 70. All of a sudden it gets really cold, it'll kick up the heat, bring it back to 70. So it doesn't matter what's happening on the outside, the inside stays exactly the same. Well, all of us have a personal development set point. And the reason why you're not able to accomplish more is because that achievement might be above your set point. It works like this. See, a lot of times people will run into a bunch of money, and we see it all the time with lottery winners, right? Somebody's making $30,000 a year, they get paid $20 million. In 3 to 5 years, what's inevitably the situation? How is that possible? How does somebody make $30,000 a year, get $20 million in their hands, and then in 3 to 5 years be broke? because the money was far above their set point. And unconsciously, they did everything they possibly could to get rid of it until it went back down to their personal development set point. A lot of people go on diets, lose a bunch of weight. What happens inevitably? Gain it all back. Why? Because that weight was not commensurate to their personal development set point. So you could wave a magic wand and put 40 pounds on me by magic. And in 6 to 9 months, what's probably going to be the case? I'm going to lose it off, right? Because that weight is not commensurate to my personal development set point. You could take somebody who's 50 pounds overweight, magic wand, take it all off. In 6 to 9 months, what's inevitably going to be the case? They're going to gain it all back, right? Because that's going to be equal to their personal development set point. Business, you can all of a sudden have a runaway freight train, your business starts to grow, but if it's not equal to the personal development set point, it'll fall back right to where it was. So, what do you do about this? If you're stuck at a personal development set point, how can you possibly ever achieve what you haven't achieved before? Here's what you do. Stop working on your money, your health, your business, and your relationships. Instead, work on you. And when you grow, when you raise your personal development set point, then all of a sudden, everything in your life grows along with you. My mentor, Jim Rohn, put it this way. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. For things to improve, you have to improve. And when you improve, everything in your life improves along with you. What you have to do is to raise your personal development set point. In whatever area you're focused on trying to achieve, underneath that is a skill set point. When you raise the skill set point, then all of a sudden everything around you rises to its level. And I think we actually need to learn less and study more. See, information is not the obstacle to any of our achievements. With a Google search, every piece of information in the world is available to you. Information is not the problem. As a matter of fact, information is the problem because it's overwhelming you, and in the paralysis of too much information, you're doing nothing. And so I say you need to learn less and study more. Find a few things in which you are allocating your attention to and go deep in the study of a few things, period. So my personal development plan, I'll give it to you real quickly. My personal development plan is really simple. I call it the 1-1-5-3-1-30-35-10-10 plan. Yeah, it's more simple than it thinks. Number one is, what is my number one goal? Of my big three, what's the number one most important goal? Then, what's the number one skill necessary to achieve that goal? That's the 1-1 part. Then I take the new skill, and every quarter I attack a new skill. Every quarter, that's all. One skill a quarter, that's it. And I buy the top 5 books focused on that skill, the top 3 CD, DVD programs, and I go to one seminar focused on improving that skill. And you go like, wow, geez, that seems like a lot of time. No, it's not, right? So all I do at the time is, that's the 30-30 part. Every morning I get up and I read for 30 minutes, one of those 5 books. And in about 4 weeks, you're through all 5 books, really, by just reading 30 minutes every morning, 5 days a week. You don't want to do it on the weekends. Why? I want to get that personal development, right? And then while I drive around, I listen to one of those CD programs or walk around or travel for 30 minutes. While my hands are busy, my mind is free. You spend 300 hours in your car on average every single year. You get a PhD in any skill that you want in the time that you just drive around. It's called net time, no extra time. And I treat it like a race. I mean, if I'm traveling, if I'm walking through the airport, if I'm walking the dogs, if I'm in the gym, I'm feeding my mind. Every hour that goes by, I feel like I'm getting steps ahead of my contemporaries. Now you go, well, that's a lot of money to spend on your personal development. No, it's as simple as this. Brian Tracy taught me the 10-10 investment. When I was 18 years old, so you want to take 10 cents of every dollar you make and carve it off to help other people, right? Tithing, you've heard of that? And you want to take the other 10%, carve it off to help yourself. 10 cents out of every dollar you earn needs to be reinvested in your own personal development. He says for every dollar you invest in your personal development, it adds $30 to your bottom line. I've had that philosophy since I was 18 years old, and I can tell you the rate of return is far greater than 30 to 1. Now, where else can you go get a 30 to 1 return on your financial investments? Anywhere, and I'm talking to a room of financial advisors. The best place is your own personal development. Jim Rohn put it this way. He says, you want to take the goals that you've got, and your goals need to equal the investment you make in the achievement of them. So you want to make $250,000 a year, you should be spending $25,000 on your personal development. That 10% equal to the goal that you've got. You have to grow into your goals. He says you can't achieve something you haven't achieved before because you're not something you need to be. And so the only way to achieve your goals is to grow into them. The aim of life is to see all that you can become with all you've got. So I just want to encourage you to pick one. What one skill? If you just walk away from the Vital Improvement and say, I'm just going to pick one skill and attack it with all you've got. Go buy top 5 books, top 3 CD programs, sign up for one seminar, and attack that one skill over the next quarter. The skill most important to accomplishing your biggest goal, it'll make an immeasurable difference for you. I want to give you one last strategy to walk away with, apply to your business that I think can make a profound difference because it did for mine. When I first got into real estate, I was 20 years of age. I had no business being in the real estate business, right? Person's most valuable investment, 20-year-old. And I went to a seminar, and I took the seminar leader out to lunch, and I asked him, I said, what is if you were to give me advice, the most important thing that I could do to be successful in real estate, what would that one thing be? He said, go fail. And I said, I thought the whole idea of success was to avoid failure. He says, no, it's exactly the opposite. He says, I want you to go fail rapidly, go fail big, go fail as fast as possible. And he could see that I had this perplexed look on my face, and he gave me this quote from Thomas Watson who said, the key to success is massive failure. Think about that for a second. The key to success is massive failure. Instead of hearing that as a motivational quip, what if that were true? The key to success is massive failure. Now, based on the look on your face, same look I had, he wrote out this little analogy. He says, look, life is like a pendulum. On one side of the pendulum is pain, rejection, sadness, and failure. On the other side of the pendulum is joy, love, happiness, and success. He said, you can't push the pendulum on the side of joy, love, happiness, and success, but you can on the side of pain, rejection, sadness, and defeat. Your job is to go push the pendulum as far and as wide as possible on the pain, rejection, sadness, and failure side. He says, most people find this little comfort zone, and they're never willing to experience a certain level of pain, rejection, and sadness, so they never experience a certain level of success, happiness, and joy. And that ends up becoming the confined reality of their life, the comfort zone. He says, your job is to push that pendulum as high and wide on the side of failure and rejection. So in real estate, there's a few places you can go get a lot of rejection really fast, right? Expired listings, for sale by owners, the scourge of the earth, right? Door knocking, cold calling. And I just took his advice straightforward. And I just went and just subjected myself to massive amounts of rejection, defeat, failure, sadness, and bludgeoning. I pushed the pendulum high and wide. I was in an office of 44 agents, veteran agents. And in 90 days, I was outselling the entire office combined with number of new listings and number of new escrows. It did exactly as he promised. It swung in equilibrium on the other side. And even to this day, this becomes a new confined comfort zone. If I get to the end of the month and I have not had some sort of defeat, failure, or rejection of some epic proportion, I am mad at myself. Why? Because I want more success than I have right now. And the key to success is what? Massive failure. You ask Richard Branson, the king of failure, he's had more failures than anybody in this room, times 100. Epic failures. I mean, remember Virgin Brides? Virgin Cosmetics? Virgin Cinemas? Virgin Cars? All of them, epic failures. He's failed his way to $4 billion of net worth, right? You want to pursue failure with a passion. When you can turn fear into fun, when you turn the pursuit, instead of success, when you turn it to the pursuit of failure, of rejection, of defeat, all of a sudden, fear and failure loses its energy. And the only thing that I did in the real estate business over my contemporaries is I just outfailed them. And because I was able to endure more failure, more rejection, more defeat, I also accumulated more success and more victory and more. So instead of having a contest in your organization about the number of new transactions, number of new successes, have a who could get to 100 no's the fastest. The number of 100 rejections, and then celebrate that person. And then have a booby prize that whoever has the most heart-wrenching, gut-kicking defeat story, carry them around on your shoulders and celebrate them. Because when you turn fear into fun, I'm telling you, it loses all of its weight and empowers your productivity like no end. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, do something every day that scares you. So to sum up what we've talked about here today together is this. The productivity secrets of superachievers comes down to these half dozen fundamentals. Stop doing most of the things that you're doing right now. Master the vital few functions, priorities, metrics, and improvements. Out-focus everybody around you. This is going to be the dividing line of competition in the 21st century. Who can outfocus their competition? Outlast everybody around you through consistency. Don't just start this new regimen, this new diet plan, this new resolution, and then drift. Don't suffer the common achiever dilemma of drift. The tortoise will always win, no matter how talented or how ambitious or how skilled the hare is, the tortoise will always win, outlast. And outgrow. Scale your skill, particularly the skill of focus and productivity in the 21st century. And then lastly, outfail everybody around you. And if you're willing to not only see failure as part of the process, an acceptable part of the path, but actually the pursuit to accumulate as many failures and rejections as possible, I'm telling you, success will beat a path to your door, and you'll have more to sip out of the chalice of victory, more than you possibly could drink. And do all of that, and then maybe one day, one of you in this audience will get knee to knee with me, because we will be presenting your story on the cover of Success Magazine. Thank you all very much. It's been a joy to be with you. Pleasure's been mine. Thank you, guys.